Viewers, ladies, gentlemen, deers, tigers, animals of people who have tuned in. It is Tuesday, December 14th, 2010, and this is Day 9 Daily number 228. Today was a busy day. I had one of those days where you take your shower like it's a pill, right? You just hork that thing down, and then this is kind of the way it looked when I emerged from the shower, and I said, exactly. That is cool. I'm actually not going to cut my hair anytime soon, I don't think. I'm going to let it grow out. I'm going to become a shag monster. Shaggy monster, I guess, was what I should have said in the first place. But that's fine. I will also be a shag monster. That's cool. Yes. Day 9, the shag monster, who plays both games and girls. No, I just play games. Anyways, in very, very exciting news, I am casting the Root Gaming Tournament Wednesday evening and Thursday evening, right after the daily, so just stay tuned and emerge into Root Gaming glory. We'll be doing the round of 8 then. And then on the weekend, I will be in Phoenix, Arizona doing the EG Masters Cup with Dr. Wheat, El Wheat No Toad, after which I'll be going to Michigan to play Super Meat Boy, which I was playing earlier today, and this finger is so tired. It is exhausted. For any of you who don't know, you have to run by holding the trigger. So if you're playing for 45 minutes, you're holding one of those Xbox Live controller triggers with its super spring-loaded resistance. Oh, God, I'm so tired I couldn't give directions. You know, do you know where the subway is? It's over. It's somewhere that way, and I just pointed with my whole fist. It was great. My finger actually hurts. This daily is going to be brutal to do. But in exciting news, I just want to show everyone a fancy new overlay made by one of the viewers. Thank you very much. Bam! That's right. It's a happy time yarn day, I guess. I like this little heart here. That's quite festive in the 9. But thank you very much. By the way, 100% of the art that you see associated with the daily is done by viewers. All contributed. Not that I wouldn't be the sort of person who'd be like, excuse me, designer, this is what I want designed. I'd sit there with my wine and my whip just beating them and be like, art more, art more. But no, that was completely fan done. Thank you very much for that. Today is Newbie Tuesday, so I thought that it made sense to kind of have the, childhood-themed daily going on. But in this week's Newbie Tuesday, it was games of you losing to mid-game Banelingz, right? Mid-game Banelingz. Because I think everyone's encountered someone doing some sort of cheesy, ultra-crazy Baneling burst, but no one's ever actually really as concerned about the mid-game Banelingz, right? There's a lot of anti-Baneling bust strategies, but not a lot of how to deal with stuff in the mid-game. And the reason I asked for those replays to be submitted is that, in general, it's so important to spend most of your time thinking about the mid-game. That's where most of everything sort of converges together, where most of everything actually becomes stuff you really need to begin worrying about. You know, kind of like your opening stages, everyone knows you kind of need to not die, but your mid-game's where your goals are. Good. So, interestingly enough, who submitted the most replays? And by that I mean, what race submitted the most replays? Because again, Newbie Tuesday, losing to mid-game Banelingz. That's correct, it was the Terran pieces who are submitting most of them. Because, per usual, the Marines can be very, very vulnerable to the Banelingz and that sort of stuff. So, this will end up being an entirely Zerg vs. Terran focused daily of how to deal with that. Cool. Fantastic. Just because that is how the replay submissions ended up being. I kind of assumed that would be the case, but, you know, why not? Why not? Why not? Why not? So this is actually not the game. We're going to leave that. Notice, no sound. Turn that sound on, and this is the first one we're going to watch. Great, great, great. Now, for any of you who did or did not get the chance to watch the Colossus Daily, the Colossus Daily was the same thing, he said, rearranging his camera. Perfect. The Colossus Daily was submit replays of you losing to Colossi in some way, shape, or form. Now, there were 3 things I talked about in that daily, which were ways that you could lose to the Colossus. One is that the Colossi or that you just didn't deal with them in the battle directly. You know, so for instance, you tried to attack 5 well-positioned colossi in a narrow alley with just zerglings. I'd be like, okay, that was really not well controlled. Definitely want to work on that. The second one that we talked about is that you see the colossus and you didn't respond to it appropriately. You made the wrong thing. So for instance, you saw the colossus and you said, I'm going to go mass zergling against like Zealot Colossus Sentry. It's going to be kind of tough. So I would have said, oh, probably should have done a different strategy. Your strategy was the problem, right? So again, to use one word, control is an issue against the unit. Strategy is an issue against the unit. But the third one, which is actually what we're going to be beginning with today, put the thumb down, so it's actually 3. The third one is you were dead. You were already dead, and the Banelingz were just kind of the formality. Or the Colossi was just the formality. For example, let's say I 6-pool you, right? I 6-pool you on Shakura's Plateau, cross-map. I get to your base. You have completely blocked the ramp off with a Zealot. I retreat, and then I decide now it's time to make drones. If my opponent 4-gates me, if my opponent early expands, if my opponent goes 2-gate robo push, if my opponent goes mass void ray, I'm gonna lose just because my 6-pool left me with absolutely no economy. However, a lot of people will make the critical mistake of completely botching a game and ruining it, and the game's done, but they end up leaving the game 5 minutes later, and they put all the thought into that last 5 minutes when they were already dead. The mistake happened beforehand. So we want to definitely be looking at plenty of those. So we have Lead Rash as the red Zerg in the bottom right corner. And we have Cock 4 in the left as the blue Terran. So, great. A lot of times, our response to the Banelingz is one thing we want to worry about. Our control against the Banelingz is another thing we want to worry about. But in this game, it's going to be, were we dead right from the get-go, right? Was it everything beforehand that was the issue? Was it the fact that the Banelingz were just sort of, could have been anything going on? So we will investigate that. In this game, I want to let you know it's that Cock 4 does a strategy and a setup that is approximately correct, but has a huge hole in it that ends up being his fall. The Banelingz ended up not really mattering too much. So either way, we have Lead Rash early expanding, right? Lead Rash early expanding. I'm going to continue to repeat that list of you can miscontrol against Banelingz, you can respond when you see the Banelingz incorrectly, or you can just be so dead to begin with, because that is really how you can account for most situations. In this daily, we're focusing on one unit, the Baneling, and trying to think about everything in terms of the Baneling, because that can always help narrow down your search. A lot of people just watch their games and say, well, why did I lose? Why did I lose? And they try to wait for the thought to enter their brain, but we like to have that little list in our heads beforehand. So there's the double Queenies going down. 1 queener, 2 queener, cool. There's the spine crawler going down. I really think that Zerg should be gassing about now. Not going to worry too much about it, looking for the big broad stroke. So what is Cock 4 doing? He is going for a bunker with Marines. We do see the tech lab going down on the factory. Okay, cool. We see a starport going down as well. So we're going to investigate a little bit more. I want to be watching from over here for a little bit. There's the land going down. Blump. Here's the starport. It's going to be drifting on over here to go ahead and make a Banshee. Now, this is good, right? How often have you seen Terran players do this and succeed with it? All the damn time. And as we can see, we're going to see the Cloak come out. There's Cloak. We're going to see a Banshee come out. Banshee. Bancharingu. There's the Banshee going down. Let's have some Hellions being produced. 2 Hellions. Perhaps a little excessive on the Hellion front. No, actually cancels. Goes for a Tech Lab factory. Now, what have I said so often in all the dailies? Think about the mid-game. What's a good mid-game for Terran? One that has a lot of Marines and a lot of tanks. Very standard mid-game. So when I'm watching this, I'm always thinking, how can he end up there? Meanwhile, in Zergland, I really like the way Zerg plays. This is much more kind of similar to how I like to play this matchup, which is lots of queens, delayed gas, using a few more spine crawlers than normal. There are the Marines trying to bludgeon the Overlord out of vision range. Alright, Cloak seems to be finishing up right now. So you're still kind of noting things look pretty good. Oh, an expansion. Fantastic. An expansion. Great. We're even getting these... there's the scan going down. Where are the Banshees? There they are. There's a little changeling that should be shot down momentarily. Now, there's a couple things I want to note that are problems I'm not concerned about. What I'm about to say, I don't care too much about. I do think that this was a mistake to get the siege tank research up this early. I do think that this was a mistake. However, I really don't care. It does not bother me that much. Because I'm still trying to look for as big a problem as possible. As big a problem as possible. Let's get rid of the huge, easy, glaring mistakes before we worry about the little, tiny, teensy, refined mistakes. In particular, I'm going to worry about macro-related things before I worry about micro-related things. And I'm also going to worry about when we're making attacks versus whether we're getting the upgrades in the super optimal order, right? Focus on the big stuff first. For instance, if you're a slow player and you just can't keep your money down because your hands aren't fast enough, get your hands faster, right? Because that's the biggest thing in the way right now. Don't worry about something like, how do I micro perfectly with a Hellion against a Roach so I take no damage? It can make you feel fancy but won't actually get you any wins. So yes, this could have gone out much later as we are totally defended and the siege is not necessary. But we're going to go ahead and look at the more obvious stuff, right? So this attack ends up coming. He will end up retreating with the Banshees. Very nice. Did guaranteed damage. In other words, he shot and he left without losing anything. He didn't actually kill anything, but still, he did manage to do a little bit of damage, pulling all the queens back. The queens are not in the best position. Notice the queens have missed a lava varmint. Lava varmint! So that means that at least some damage was done. Wow, still making Banshees. That's an interesting play, right? We like that quite a bit. We do like that car alarm noise that's invading my room. One of the many pleasures of living in South Central Los Angeles. Either way, there's the hatchery going down from Lead Rash. Now, this is probably the point where things are going to begin to be an issue for our Terran buddy. So far, our Terran buddy, Cock 4, is making more barracks. He's getting more Banshees. Things are looking pretty good. Now, we do always want to kind of be keeping an eye on this resource station. This resource meter can be an extremely effective way for you to keep track of whether you are pulling ahead or messing up and falling behind. We'll be doing that a lot in the second game we're going to look at today. But this is an introduction to a very important idea of something going wrong before you even encounter the Banelingz. Something going wrong way, way earlier. Similar to how if we do a failed 6 pool, almost no economic follow-up is going to be very strong. If we do a bad opening, almost no follow-up to that bad opening is going to be strong. So the Banelingz, even though they killed us, those Banelingz could have been Roaches, they could have been Zerglings, they could have been Mutalisks. It doesn't matter. Now, Cock 4 is going to move out here. Notice that he has absolutely no stim, no combat shield. He does have siege mode for his tanks. He's moving out with a very big anti-ground army. Very, very big. Now let's watch this replay as though we were Cock 4, right? Let's go through this fast. Okay, so here's the push. Seems to be doing some damage. We're going to go through this really fast, and then we're going to rewind a little bit afterwards. So someone will come up here looking at this being like, yeah, I was doing so good. I killed off a hatch here and a hatch here. Well, he was harassing me with Mutalisks. And then the Banelings come in. Oh, everything ends up getting killed off. And even on the resource station, it clearly indicates that we're far behind. Look at this. We're 30 food behind our opponent. And our opponent has way more money than we do. Right? So that can absolutely give you the impression that, man, those Banelings, they're just so strong. How do I possibly deal with them? Well, here's a little bit of an issue. I'm actually going to pull this little overlay back. We're going to rewind a little bit. Great. Looks like we are loading up at the 9-minute mark. Fantastic. This is right when our Terran buddy began to move out. And when I say move out, I mean move out to take this expansion. Watch what happens in the main. We have the barracks go down. We have another barracks go down. Notice the tanks and the Marines. That's the generally good look. But we're starting to see that there's no upgrades. There's no add-ons going on to these barracks. There's really no add-ons. Now, let's think of an extreme example. If we went 4 barracks Marine before 4 gas, just 4 barracks straight off the bat and made a bunch of Marines, and then we tried to attack. Let's say we did that. I want you to think about what would be the problem with that. Again, let's restate that same scenario. Let's say you're Terran, you open up, you get 4 barracks Marine, you have no gas, no expansion, just 4 barracks Marine, you get like 25, 30 Marines, and you just attack. Couple of things could happen. One, you could win outright. Let's ignore that one. First of all, because his finger's still exhausted from playing Super Meat Boy, but also because that's boring. If you win, no one cares, right? It's when you lose that interesting things occur. Let's say he holds it off with roaches. Let's say he holds it off with spine crawlers. Let's say he holds it off with zerglings. Let's say he holds it off with banelings. No matter how he ends up holding it off, you have no add-ons on your barracks. You have no gas. You can't really do much. It's a little bit crippling to end up over-committing a little bit to these sorts of situations. Now, honestly, we can see that this attack ends up coming at a pretty nice time. But it's what starts happening back here at the main. All right, so we're going to reference the mini-map while we look at this main, right? This is a clear telltale sign of a little bit of a weak strategy when there's no progress happening in the base. There's no progress happening in the base, and clear progress could be happening. If you have all the upgrades finished, and you have like 9 barracks and 10 bases, yeah, there's nothing else that needs to happen in the base. But if you have no infantry upgrades, and you're thinking of going infantry this game, and I mean no stim, no combat shield, if you have no reactors, if you have no tech labs, that's a problem, right? That's a little bit of a problem. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to advance forward, and we're going to start to really see the effects of this. Now, this is a very common happening where you're focusing so much on the battle that your brain sort of fizzes out, and you're just making things out of these barracks. Look at these guys, Marines. How are they hotkeyed? Yep, just has them all as 3. Probably just taps 3, AAA, maybe comes back, makes some out of this thing. Well, I want you to notice things like, this is not that many Marines at all. It's 13 Marines. If Zerg had made a bunch of Mutalisks, he could have killed this attack. If Zerg had made a bunch of Roaches, probably could not have killed this attack. If Zerg made a bunch of Zerglings and Roaches, probably could have killed this attack. There's a lot of things that could potentially just go kill this attack. And we can even note that, hey, you know what? Our opponent has a lot of money. This right here is like 60 Zerglings, right? That's a lot of Zerglings can be produced off that. So Coco 4 is going to come up, and notice these Banelingz don't even need to have done that much damage. There's 12 Marines, no detonation, still no detonation. The Mutalisks and the Zerglings could have cleared this up themselves. But this will give you the illusion, because the Banelingz really did the huge, scary explosion damage, it can convince you, yeah, you know what, those Banelingz were the problem. But now, look, this is the actual problem, what was going on at the base. That timing of the attack came at kind of an awkward, kind of a weak time, was a little slow, and in particular, this is just kind of a weak setup. So that attack may very well have brought success if my opponent was going Roaches, right? You move in with a bunch of Marines, 4 tanks with Siege, and 4 Banshees. Roach players are going to die real fast. Also, some Hydra Ing players are going to die real fast. But your average Mutalisk, Baneling, Zergling, Emphasis player, which is like 95% of Zerg versus Terraners out there, are going to be super comfortable. Ultra comfortable against most early pushes, especially this early push that has 13 Marines against it, right? It almost didn't matter. But I want to continue because this game has another one of these, right? So let's say you're playing your Coco 4, right? You're not dead yet. You just lost your push, but notice how you're kind of paralyzed. Oh, you want to move out and do some sort of stim push? Well, you got to start getting stim. It's combat shield first. I don't mind that at all. Meanwhile, Zerg is macroing, getting up tons of hatches, right? We see these evolution chambers coming out. Now, if we actually just pause and we look from Terran's point of view, I would pretty much say that Terran is dead. Just looking at this resource differential, 153 to 115, Zerg is having, you know, most of the map. He can easily take more bases. He has almost everything. I mean, Zerg's won. Zerg has won. At this point, if I were watching this replay and I was Coco 4, Cock 4, I would say, well, just shouldn't have done that attack. Better not do that next time. Better get those combat shields. end that stim earlier, better get those reactors earlier. And great, cool, I have a goal for next game. This game actually is a 40-minute long game. It's 40 minutes long. Do you realize how terrible this is for your analysis? For the actual playing of the game, that's fine to play a long game. Go ahead and play every long game you please. That's fantastic. There's nothing wrong with playing a long game. However, the curse of right when you end a game trying to analyze it is that you remember what just transpired, which is the last part, which is generally the unimportant part. Right now, this is not that important. This is really not that important, this part of the game. We're going to keep watching it, because this entire remainder of the game, I want to be a big emphasis of how it can feel like there's the Baneling is the big issue. And it's going to feel like, the Baneling is so scary. Yep, getting the Thors out. A very Jinro style, the Marine Thor tank mix. Okay, I have enough money to get a command center. We're actually going to go into the Cock 4 cam. I mean, just look at the food differential. Look at that tremendous food differential. And note for the record, though, Cock 4 is actually playing fundamentally well. Look at the SCV saturation. Look at the SCV saturation. Lots of SCVs. Look at the money. Extremely low. There's little things like, you know what? Too many turrets. Could have cut back on the turrets. Maybe these guys, I actually think, don't even need to be here. But you know what? Not going to be as concerned about that, because Cock 4 is actually already dead. Remember, he did that big attack, fell far behind. Now Zerg's taking way huge advantage of everything. Alright, cool. Well, it looks like Cock 4 is saying, alright, I got to build up this really good, nice army. Alright, do I have stim yet? Alright, I'm halfway done with stim. Timing-wise, it makes sense. He should wait until that stim is done. However, the stim just should not have been that late. Alright, so now he's going to reposition himself up. Alright, cool. Wants to be Mutalisk proof. Alright, cool. He wants to get his gold up. So he's going to get the command center. Now, I'm going to actually pause again and go to the everyone cam. When you're trying to take your third base, as Zerg is taking his fifth and sixth base, you're already dead, right? Are you starting to see what I mean? Wow, look at these upgrades, the hives coming up. Tons of larvae, even getting extra hatches, so that way he can do 300 food pushes a little more easily. Oh my gosh, look at the Zerglings. Look at the upgrades on the Zerglings. Look at Terran. 0, 0 upgrades. 0, 0 upgrades. In production. Hasn't even started an upgrade. And this is the curse. The whole point of this game is to show you how treacherous it can be to think about the latter stages of the game. Especially when we see what's about to transpire. Everything right now, I want you to know, is an optical illusion. It appears to be a close smash between a Terran and a Zerg, but actually this is a total one-sided 8 smashing. Notice Zerg sends Zergling in first, leaving most of his army behind, but then just target fires the planetary fortress. See you later. And oh my gosh, Cock 4! Oh! This is when you're going to have this feeling of, maybe I won. Oh my gosh. Well, or actually, excuse me. I worded it the exact opposite of what I intended to. At this point, when you lose your planetary fortress, you're going to get this, oh my god, I lost my only other base. Oh no. Looking at this position, I'm mined out of my main. My expansion's running low. Some of my mineral patches are even running completely dry. I haven't even taken an extra base. I'm not even in a position to. Look, there's another command center getting ready to get floated over, although I don't actually know where it is. I guess, it's getting ready to be constructed. So then you're like, oh my gosh, I better try to push and win right now. Right? But I want you to know this is an optical illusion. Terran died like 12 minutes ago. It is so key that you find the first point at which you made a mistake. The Banelings weren't the issue in that battle. It's the fact that Zerg has a million expos and $1 million. Look over here. This is just a lot of stuff, right? So then Terran goes over here and kills this off and thinks, I could kill this expansion, but I really got to do more damage. Goes straight for this base. And then again, yeah, the Banelings are doing a good job, right? The Banelings do a pretty decent job of hitting things. A lot of them don't hit anything. That's pretty important to note. A lot of those Banelings don't hit much of anything. They definitely demolish the Marines. But again, this is an optical illusion. What a total optical illusion to think that Terran has a chance at this point. Terran might feel as though, oh my gosh, I might actually win this game. And this is very, very common to have happen, where you're way behind, your opponent does a crippling blow, aka killing this planetary fortress, and you're forced to just take all your units and try to kill him immediately. And then sometimes it almost feels like it'll work, but then it doesn't. The problem right now, this is the entire problem with learning right now. The whole problem with learning is that this game is still going on. Cog 4 is still battling to take this expansion, is still battling to set up this base. There's a lot of action going on all over the screen. In reality, Terran's dead. Terran is completely dead. Look at this huge count of roaches coming along the backside. Could easily just run up here and kill this off. Looks like he's just electing not to. Some Overlord's position. There's a whole nother bunch of roaches. Yep. Honey bunches of roaches. Just walk right up. Yeah, look at how extremely not close that was. Extremely not close. And even Mutulus wailing away at this base. This base completely mined out. So let me come back and let's pretend we're Cog 4 and do it in the wrong mindset, right? The wrong mindset. The wrong mindset is to say, all right, I did a little attack and it lost. Uh-oh, time to kind of hole up and get my good army and move out. Okay, so I guess I didn't have my units positioned correctly at that gold expansion because he was able to kill it off pretty easily. Well, I guess I needed to counterattack, and next time I'm counterattacking, I really need to, I guess, be focusing on having this be a planetary fortress. Maybe I should be rallying my units to here and turning this into a planetary fortress and making turrets, because those Mutulus really were giving me trouble. And yeah, all those Banelingz chewed through my Marines at the bottom right. Maybe I guess I should be leading with the Thors and having the Marines behind. There's all these little things where you're just like, maybe I should do this, maybe I should, and you're thinking about all this stuff. And I want to even note, this is a 40-minute game. This game goes on for another 25 minutes, if I recall correctly. Yeah, it's a 40-minute game. So it's so easy to think to yourself, oh man, I can still do it. I still got this. Notice the food differential, 150 to 75. Notice the only single mining base for Terran. He died long ago when he had no add-ons and no ability to put pressure on his opponent. In other words, the Banelings were not the issue. Here, look, oh, Planetary Fortress ain't done yet. And it's dead. Alright, cool. Pulls back. This game is already done. I don't know how else to emphasize that more, so I'll just go ahead and stop and move on to the second replay that we're going to be looking at. But yeah, that really is one of the most important things. I spent, it looks like over half the time on that. Yeah, we're about to hit the 30-minute mark of the daily. Half the time I spent on the idea of, let's not think about the end part where the finishing blows happen, where the finishing last final moves. Let's find out when we became crippled, when there was the point of no return, when we passed the event horizon of losing. Man, there's a lot of ways to say that. When did we make the critical mistake? We got it back pretty far up. And in general, a good indicator of that is when you're even in food and suddenly this happens, where you just crunch behind. That is very, very common. The only situation in which this sort of really happens, you know, where he slowly starts getting farther and farther ahead, as opposed to like that, is if you're just not attacking at all. So if you're attacking in some regard, there will likely be some point where that happens. You want to find when that first happens and think, how can I make that not? So that was the big, important lesson for today. That is perhaps the greatest struggle of a lot of bronze to gold level players, is they look to the very last part of the game. Very, very last part, when they were starting to really get convinced that they were losing, instead of looking too early. So let's actually look at this other game. Now, this is a much more direct sort of thing. This is the later two. Remember, the three reasons that a unit gives us trouble. One, we were already dead in the first place. That's what we looked at in the last game. We were already dead. We made a huge blunder. The unit that finally killed us, or the strategy that finally killed us, was a mere formality. We were already screwed at that point. The second one is micro or control, and the third one is responding. How do we respond? How does our decision-making play out? And in control, I really want to include controlling against the Baneling with our army, and then controlling against the Baneling in our base. In other words, we're going to see this game as Karubim ends up not really having enough macro during his Baneling battles. We're We're going to see that quite a bit. So this is completely different. We're going to see that this Terran player, Karubim, actually ends up doing very cool strategy against the Zerg, is constantly pulling ahead of the Zerg, but whenever he is hanging out with some Banelingz, he ends up losing a lot more units than he necessarily should. So some of these orderings are off. Notice that we got this tech lab really fast. We have too much gas and we can't really spend it. Oh, looks like we have a later orbital command. Looks like some of this ordering is a little off. We're not actually going to worry about it that much. We're not actually. Cortex, the Zerg opponent, is actually doing quite well. He's getting his ling speed. He has 2 bases up. He's getting a second queen up. We're just going to end up poking ahead a little bit. Looks like Stim is going down at this tech lab. Great. His combat shield going down. Oh, looks like an engineering bay. What we're actually going to see from Terran is he's going to open 4 barracks. Going to open up 4 barracks. And I'm keeping this food open because right now it's looking pretty even. Now, I'm going to slow it down to beyond slow speed, right? We are at the normal game speed. Now, for the record, you can produce out of 4 barracks, 2 a tech lab, 1 with reactor. You can produce out of that constantly. That is entirely possible. We're actually going to go up to production so we can see this in action. Here are some Zerglings and some Banelings. Cool. Zerg is also en route to getting his Spire. We will note that Karubim is not playing a tip-top best diamond player in the world, GSL round of 4 level quality. However, do note that this is a great timing attack. Spire just finished, hitting it right now. Those Mutalisks will not have a chance to pop up yet. Marvelous little timing. So good. Now, in the hands of a pro, this control, hitting this army with this amount of units, is a clear, decisive win for Terran. Very, very clear win for Terran. But what we're seeing Karubim do a technique that seems reasonable, which is to take a small amount of guys and try to suicide them into the Banelings. Another way of saying this is a technique that is based upon hope. I hope he's not paying attention to his Banelings and they crash into my Marauders. I hope that when I run my small forces of units up, he doesn't notice so I can shoot one of the Banelings down. Now, again, note that this positioning is classic 1A syndrome, right? Or, I guess, 2A syndrome for Karubim. Karubim is just leaving everything in one big pile. And watch the Zerglings start to move out. And this is the usual issue that happens where you click, retreat, click, retreat, click, retreat, click, retreat. It's not the most efficient way to deal with this. There's another restim, really panicking about those Banelings. Just really absolutely does not want to encounter them, and this might feel pretty good, except for the fact that all your units are actually on the verge of dying. Now, let's go back and rewatch how that should have happened, just looking at the battle. The way that this generally should happen is you do a little technique that we like to call the slice, because it's cool. That when you're retreating back like this, let's say you click back here, you click back in this corner. We're actually going to wait until there's a little bit more space for the Marines, just so I can show this a little bit more clearly. Let's actually wait until all these Zerglings are slowly evaporating cool. So the idea of slicing is that you have the whole control group and you say retreat to here. You click right there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to slice this set of Marines. You're going to grab a layer from the front. And you're going to click here, back here. And then you're going to grab the second layer there, and you're going to click back here. It's so tempting to go 2, click, 2, click. Don't do that. 2, click, and then begin slicing off little layers like this. And if you have very good mouse precision, you can actually grab a small set and click, and then another 3 or 4 and click, and then another 3 or 4 and click, and then another 3 or 4. And what happens is exactly the way Marine King Prime's micro looks. What if you still don't like doing that, right? You think, oh, my mouse hand isn't good enough for that. Is anyone doing that right now? Are you doing that? Are you saying, God, that seems hard, my mouse control isn't that good? So important that you do creative problem solving always when you're faced with an issue like that. My mouse control doesn't seem so good. A lot of people say, I can't do it. What you should do is you should say, well, I can do it. I want to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to have my Medic Marine group in 4 hotkeys. I'm going to have everything as control group 1, and then I'm going to have a third as 2, a third as 3, and a third as 4. So then I go 1 T for 1 stem. I go 2 click, 3 click, 4 click. Boom, they fan instantly. Rat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat. And you kill everything off. Cool. Great. Or you could do the slice, right? A little bit of the slice. Just cleave that layer right on off. Whatever works for you. I tend to have a lot of hotkeys for extraneous units. Like, I'll have an extra hotkey for a scouting worker that's on this corner of the map. I'll have a hotkey by a rally point or something like that. So I prefer to use my mouse control because that's my comfort zone. If your keyboard control is your comfort zone, definitely use the having everything as 1 and 2, 3, 4, so that way you can slice against those Banelingz. Again, I want to re-emphasize something I emphasized yesterday. Visualize what would be ideal. Visualize. Holy crap, there's a ton of Banelingz, and I have all my Marines and Marauders in a clump. Visualize the ideal situation. The ideal situation is that all your stuff is just in an arc. A perfectly, beautifully spread out arc, and you've killed all the Banelingz and taken minimal damage. State what the ideal situation would be, like I just did. I have stated it. And then you say, well, now that I visualized that, what are some creative ways to get there? That's what I just said about the slice using control groups 2, 3, and 4. But all this came about with me going, I want to visualize what the optimal situation is, right? I want to think about that in my brain. Now, still note, though, food count-wise, hey, this is what makes me feel like Karubim's style of play is effective in this case, that is not the reason he's losing. I will say that, if you're playing in the GSL round of 4, I don't think Karubim's style is going to be as effective. I think your super A-plus level Zerg will be able to defeat that push a lot more easily. But what I'm saying here is that both these players are of equivalent skill level. They seem equivalently skillful. And strategy-wise, their flawed strategies are equivalently flawed so that the game is pretty even. And what's really pulling Karubim ahead is this macro. It's really pulling him ahead. There's one more thing that I want to focus on. Now, this might seem a little bit overkill, but you know what? Let's go ahead and rewind, and let's just be friggin' overkill, because that's the whole point of the Day 9 Daily. Well, apparently, the replay decided to rewind not to where I sent it, so let's go ahead and send it around the 8-minute mark, 9-minute mark, if we can get it to go there. Let's get it a little bit farther forward. It will not let me. Come on, replay. All right, no big deal. We'll just advance farther ahead. Let's actually look at what the macro does. Look up here in production. Look up here in production. We had that one Marauder that was already queued up. While we're microing, nothing in production. Nothing extra being produced. Nothing extra. Nothing extra. Nothing extra. Banelings are killed off. Oh yeah, I better macro. Bad. Very bad Karubim, right? This is what I was talking about that in-base response. If we were macroing this whole time, we would have been ahead in food at the end of that battle. Because we're not, we're even in food. Could potentially have been deemed as overkill. But again, so important that you not only obsess about your micro, but also you obsess about your macro, and also that you obsess about any set of mistakes that is getting in your way. So we're going to see more Zerglings and Banelings. Now, I want to show you the amazing thing that happens in this game. Karubim will always pull ahead, Cortex will always be behind, and then Karubim will always encounter Banelings, lose his whole army, and return back to exactly where he was. Again, using this food thing can be just a great indicator of when things are going well or when things suddenly stop going well. You see that he's getting his planetary fortress up. I'm not going to worry as much about the strategy this game. I'm not going to worry as much about that, right? I think that there are ways that he could have incorporated some tanks into this play to really end up crushing things, to really end up crushing it. But really, we want to focus a little bit more on control. Like, okay, let's try to do this analysis the same way we would do it if we were watching the replay. I still feel like I am ahead. And then, wait a minute. Things seem to have evened back out again. Did something go wrong? Okay, well, let me back up. Very, very easy technique to do. Very, very easy when you're rewatching your replays. Don't get into that curse where you just start to Watch it until when you really felt like you were losing, because you may have started losing a lot earlier. Again, here's this little technique of moving guys forward. I'm not the biggest fan of that. Also, see, look, everything in one control group. No slicing going on, no arcing, no spreading out. Just kind of run. Also, the Marines don't have combat shield. Now this is the sort of thing that would be like a strategy. I see the Banelings, I should respond by definitely not moving out until I get my combat shield up. But instead, that's what we ended up doing. Now, we end up coming back here and we say, wait a minute, there's no more SCVs. Notice this whole same thing happening again and again. The instant our blue Terran player, Karubim, encounters these Banelings, his focus is completely and totally on the Banelings. And his control is not so good. His control is having some issues, some flaws, and his ability to come back to his base and macro, his ability to do anything in his base, is totally affected by these Banelings, right? So he's going to end up remacroing a little bit more. There's the miscontrol. Should definitely be controlling that a little bit better. And again, visualize what would be absolutely ideal. You can even say things like, having my Marauders in the front and my Marines fanned out in the back. Cool, have your Marauders as 1, 30 of your Marines is 2, 30 of your Marines is 3, a 30 of your Marines is 4, and then 1T, 2T, 3T, 4T, 2 click, 3 click, 4 click. Your Marines will drift away from the Marauders, and you'll be in fantastic shape. Cool. And this is generally a good indicator. Like, if this sort of thing happens, you can kind of go, oh, well, yeah. This was pretty bad when I lost all those SCVs in my main. I guess next time I need to just have turrets in my main. I guess I didn't respond correctly to the Mutalisks, wherever they may be. Here they are. Of course, the whole point of this daily is to focus on how do we respond to the Banelings, how does everything revolve around the Banelings, but still, I am more than content doing the exact same analysis with any strategy, any unit, in any matchup. It's just a very good general technique. I'm worried about Thing X. Am I responding to Thing X correctly? Am I controlling against Thing X correctly? Or was I so dead that it didn't matter what he made, and he just happened to kill me with Thing X after I was screwed? Notice that Terran is pulling ahead again. Terran, where's your combat shield? Very late. Very late. Terran's going to continue to pull ahead again. We're going to move this forward more and more. This game actually perhaps could not be a better example of the importance of having good strategy and control against certain types of units, how integral that is. Because of the fact that we're seeing Karubim continue to pull ahead, he always keeps pulling ahead. Look at that food, 118 versus 112. Great. Here's the expansion coming down in a good location. Why is this good? Always defend something before you tear it down. Always try to say, is that something that I could steal? Is that something that's good? Well, this is good because if Terran's pushing out aggressively, then this is going to be safer with all Terran stuff in the middle of the map. If Terran's pushing out a lot, this is far back in the back of the base. It's a little bit harder to retreat back and defend if an attack ends up coming. Always want to try to defend something before you can end up, and by defend it, I mean always argue why this is a good idea before you argue why it's a bad idea. You want to try to have as many possibilities opened up in your mind. Now watch one control group syndrome come back to haunt Karubim again. This is not a particularly intimidating army. I want you to look at this number of Banelings and say not that many Banelings. Karubim now will begin using a Hope, and half his units. Here comes the Hope. I sure hope he doesn't notice that I'm trying to suicide small numbers of units. Fortunately, Hope is working pretty well, but you do not want Hope-based strategies. Notice the stem, everything in one control group. Everything actually converging together. It was spread out. Now it is slowly drifting apart. Excuse me, it was spread out, now it's slowly drifting together because of 1 click, 2 click, 3 click. Oh, Karubim, you were ahead. You were ahead beforehand. You were ahead. Oh, we're going to rewatch that 2 more times because I cannot emphasize this enough. Now, a lot of you probably think I'm just saying, yeah, this control's bad. Let's watch him have bad control again and again. What I want you to say is, instead, If you walked in the room right now on this replay, let's say you just tuned into this daily, you should be able to look at these food comparisons and say, before, big food lead for Terran. After, not big food lead for Terran. In fact, Terran, wow, ends up completely collapsing after that attack. Wow! Oh my goodness, look at how terrible news that is. That's right. And we're going to watch it just one more time because there's one thing that is always so important to mention. My favorite thing to mention, the most important thing in the game, your macro, that you do not develop a trust fund style play, that you do in fact have solid unit production throughout. Let's look at the production tab. The battle's going to be happening over here. Here are our production buildings. I'm actually going to try to select them so we can actually see if they're building or not. But of course, we have the production tab open. I'm going to start hitting this plus key, speed it up. Glance at the minimap. Notice that battle happening in the top corner. Suddenly, nothing getting produced. Wow. You know what? Let's actually back up to before the battle so we can see when Karubim was macroing. This is another very important thing for any of you bronze up to platinum people to do, is to just stare at your base during periods when, actually, I pretty much generally stare at my base for at least one run through of a replay to see when my macro is slipping. Yeah, right now it looks like when Terran's moving out to the gold, there's nothing being made. Oh, wow, look at that production tab coming to life. Look at everything. Glance at the minimap. Isn't this a great way to analyze a replay? Staring at your base and then glancing at the minimap to look at where your army movement was going on. Just to remind you what was happening in the game. You want to keep your screen fixed. You want to really maybe just do this sort of thing. Maybe sort of poking around. Look at this beautiful production tab. Look at all the stuff coming out of it. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that great? Oh, 4 Marines in production. Oh, Karubim. Ooh, making me shiver, baby. Marine production, moving along, moving right along. Alright, cool. Wow, getting siege mode. Love that siege tank timing. Oh my gosh, I love that siege mode timing. Notice that it's going to finish about the time when we would encounter our opponent. And then suddenly, remember this part of the game? Look at the minimap. Look at the minimap. At the minimap, we see that little army there. This is where that hope-based strategy of sending a couple of guys in at a time ends up occurring, right? Alright, okay, look at the macro. Let's look at the tab. Finishing up production on those 2 Marauders. Alright, 1 Marauder, 1 Marine in production. Wait, our macro seems to be going away. Our macro seems to be going away. Uh-oh, look, there's the macro battle in the center. Excuse me, the micro battle in the center. Nothing getting made. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Wow. Oh, man. It really looks like Karubim stops macroing whenever he is in an intense battle situation. And the funny thing is you can train yourself. To the instant you suddenly feel the urge to micro, you just go, 5, A, and make a bunch of Marines. And by the way, look at the production buildings at the bottom, just white dotting everything. After that battle was done, it was a very clear 5, A, right? Just trying to spam it as quickly as humanly possible. So, let's do the same old thing that we did in the last game. Definitely the Banelingz specifically were what we're giving Karubim the problem. Whole point of this daily is losses based upon Banelingz. Losses based upon Banelingz and how we think about them. Karubim very clearly was having struggles with the Banelingz. Now we have hit the point where Karubim is dead. Karubim is actually completely and totally dead. If he wins this game, if this game goes on any longer, it is a mere optical illusion because, again, he is actually dead. He is against a Zerg with significantly higher food than he is at, against a Zerg who's taking more bases, who has better upgrades, who has a significantly larger army, and is in a better position. Everything is better about Zerg. Hell, even if Zerg had better macro, he would be farther ahead. Even with bad macro, Zerg's doing great. And again, a moment like this will make you go, curse you, vile Banelingz. That battle had nothing to do with the Banelingz. That battle was completely Baneling independent, right? That was just the fact that he was already so dead. So these concepts are pretty fundamental. Pretty damn fundamental. The whole idea of when you see the unit responding appropriately to it, so we would say things like get the combat shield, get the siege tanks incorporated into the force. Other important things like controlling and macroing in the middle of the battle, so key, so key. And in all this, it's all colored by the whole notion of when that game was done, when we were just completely on the ground, bleeding to death in the alley. That's the moment when we say something went wrong. When did this night go wrong, right? That's so important that you can go back as early as possible, because right now I see a dead Terran, right? Even long before this GG, right when everything was dying here, when everything died there, I was like, wow, that's a dead Terran, man. How do we stop that from happening in the first place? So now I'm going to do something a little bit unusual for a Newbie Tuesday. We're going to load up a replay that we have not yet seen. Let's go ahead and load up a... we'll do it based on the name. Lots Gagamel, Starbug Pylo, and then Rick and Marco. You know what? I know a guy named Marco from Gosu Gamers, and he's awesome, so I will load the game based upon that. Let's see if we can start really rushing through to identify. Looks like these guys are buddies. Just having a little conversation. I'm going to open up my resource counter. You know what? I'm going to open up the production counter just so I can kind of learn what's going on from a bird's eye view. I do this a lot, where I'll blast through a game just to get a vague sense of what's going on. I won't actually slow down. I want things to be as big picture as possible. There's, wow, the wall off. Ooh, man. Terran, okay. So far my bird's eye interpretation is that this game started off with Terran coming out to a huge early lead. Right, huge early lead. There's the Banelingz nest going down. So Zerg responded by getting a layer kind of fast. Terran transitioned into 2 starport Banshees because he wants to be as annoying as possible. Marco, I'm going to bunker rush, and then I'm going to Banshee rush, and then I'm going to get 5 battle cruisers and repair them with 100% of my SCVs because I refuse to be anything but the most annoying human being in the world. Looks like Banshees come in. They're going to be real successful. Queens try to come in. Uh-oh, and loses the Spire. Man, Marco is just in a tremendous position. Wow, 80 food to 47. Okay, whoa. Yeah, that Spire was pretty damn close to being done. Wow, doesn't have stim. The funny thing would be is if this person submitted a Newbie Tuesday game and just, like, won outright, and it was not close. There's the Mutalisks trying to pop out. Uh-oh, looks like there are some Marines there to greet. Alright, so I'm still trying to get my bird's eye view. It didn't go as well as planned. And then everything ends up dying, it looks like. Gosh, Terran is still just in such a tremendous position. I don't think that attack went well. I would like to not have that attack go like that beforehand, but thus far, if I am thinking I'm a Terran player who struggles to lose against Banelingz, I would label everything I've done so far as good. I'm in a good position. I'm in a good position. I'm still looking for the moment when I really ended up losing. There's the stimming going on. Ended up losing the medevacs. I'm still in such a big lead as Terran. More Banelingz getting produced. More Mutalisk harass. Speeding things right along. Speed, 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 speed. Speed, speed, speed. Really trying to see... Oh, whoopsie daisies. Yeah, man, Terran looks like he's in a great position. Terran is very clearly in a fantastic, phenomenal situation, even now gearing up to get an expansion. Another big concern of mine whenever I watch a game like this is, did someone just decide to stop expanding? Because everything in Starcraft is centered around when you take bases. Excuse me, absolutely everything. Absolutely, absolutely everything. So, I just want to pause this right now. Well, actually, we'll pause right after it seems like everything is killed! Oh, that was kick-ass. Oh, man, that at the very least made me in a good mood. So, let's look at the situation right about here, right? Let's actually look at right before we ended up losing every one of our Marines. Holy cow. So at this point in the game, let's go through those 3 right now. In terms of the control, right, we haven't encountered the Banelingz yet, so we're just going to ignore that. Are we responding appropriately to the Banelingz? Right now, it's Marines, medevacs, Banshees. We would say something like, well, maybe I want to get more Marauders to absorb the damage of the Banelingz. Well, maybe I want to get more tanks to pick the Banelingz off. Maybe I want to have some Thors in there to advance forward. But you know what? Marine Medevac Banshee is not that terrible against huge numbers of Banelings. The Banshees pick off a lot on the ground, and the Marines, even if you lose over half of them, Marines are still fantastic units, and small numbers of Marines are good. So this, I would say, is maybe in the category of didn't respond appropriately. Maybe I would look next time and say, I will get more tanks next time. I will get more Thors next time. I will get more Marauders next time. I will expand more next time. Like these sorts of things. That is how we would do the first category. Second category, have we already lost this game? Is this a totally done, dead game? We shouldn't be thinking about it? No, of course not. Look at the food lead from Marco. Look at how Marco's gearing up to take another expansion. Look at the huge number of Banshees and Marines pouring out. His upgrades, whoa, almost 2-2 for players of this caliber. That is fantastic that Marco is not forgetting his upgrade. Very, very good. And then here comes the Banelingz up here. Now, we very clearly already saw the Banelingz smash everything, and it wasn't close. Still, you don't want to fall in the trap where you go, oh, I just miscontrolled whatever, it's dumb, or whatever. Still take a little bit of extra time to ask yourself, did I respond correctly upon seeing all these Banelingz? Oh, God, that's incredibly rewarding to watch, especially that last blast. Wow. Wow. It's still incredibly important to say things like, am I building the wrong things? Am I already... oh, Marco. Am I building the wrong things? Or did I even already lose this game? Very, very important. Should do a lot of pausing and going, was I already dead? Was I already dead? Now, I would like to state for the record, we're 21 minutes into this game. I only watched a minute of it, not at ×8. For the majority of it, I was at ×8, right? For the overwhelming majority of it, I was at ×8. I'm just going to pause and come back here and wrap this daily up. For the majority of it, I was at ×8 lightning speed blasting through this daily. Because all I wanted to see were the big broad strokes. That's totally fine. Totally fine. If you are a gold lever, a gold lever, if you're a gold lever, man, if you're a bronze level, silver level, gold level, platinum level, I don't know why level's so hard for me to say. If you are bronze, silver, gold, platinum, definitely in these ranges, do not feel the need to go into excruciating detail in your replays. I actually have a friend of mine who was a Silver League player, and he would study his replays so meticulously and write down everything that he needed to work on. You can only really work on 1 or 2 or 3 things at a time. For me, right now, what I'm working on is I'm working on my mouse precision. I'm working on looking at my minimap and not getting supply blocked. And I have generally one thing related to my strategy I'm working on every single game. That's about it. That's all I'm really going to focus on. So, for instance, when I would play a Terran vs. Zerg, I would say, okay, Sean, make sure that you are clicking properly with your Marine control. Make sure you're looking at the mini-map to do spotting for Mutalist. And let's make sure we don't forget to upgrade that siege mode at exactly this food. That's like all I do. And then once I'm good at my siege tank timing, I'm like, all right, cool. Let me figure out my third base timing. All right, cool. Let me figure out my engineering bay timing. Just one at a time. Because we blasted right through this replay and got a very good sense of when that key moment of the total Terran collapse happened. So be on the lookout for that and work on the big things first, right? Big, big, big things first. Do lots of visual dailies or visualizations. I don't know why I said dailies, but yeah. So let's take one more thing. So B Kim 93. Perfect question. Day 9, how do you expect us to be able to efficiently macro while doing some crazy micro stuff like slicing? I don't. Isn't that great? Caribum wasn't doing the good micro and wasn't having the good macro. Pick one and focus on it. I recommend macro first, but you know what? Your learning process, you can do either one, but just pick one. So say to yourself, all right, there's the Banelingz, and then give yourself mental permission to just say, you know what? I'm not going to worry about macro right now. I am just going to focus on micro. Cool. Or let's say you want to focus on micro. You can say, hey, dear, incredibly close Zerg friend, let's play a game where I get 3 Marauders and 12 Marines, and you attack me with 10 Banelings. And then we do that, and I lose everything. Okay, pull back to 10 more Banelings. Let me replenish my Marines and my Marauders. All right, attack. All right, I lost everything. Let me remake 3 Marauders and 12 Marines. And you do it again and again and again and again and again. As long as it's one thing you're working on, easy dunsies. For instance, I tend to work on the macro aspect of it. And then what happens is my hands actually macro for me. Like, my brain doesn't macro, my eyes don't macro, my hands just sort of do it. My hands actually kind of have the rhythm. You know, kind of like if you were asked to be keeping a beat, your hand would just sort of be able to keep somewhat of a beat. Your hands, like, can actually kind of remember, okay, you know, 4 SS for SCVs. Little bit of time passes, 4 SS for 2 SCVs. All right, cool. And you kind of get this rhythm of, all right, every 13 seconds an SCV finishes, so let me SS to finish it up. So yeah, just work on one thing at a time. For me, I tend to work on macro first. For you, you can work on micro. Ow, my tummy. Ouch. Owie. Crispy Chip asks another fantastic question. When do you reassign hotkeys? I use 4 for command centers, but from what you say, it can be good later to reassign 4 to perhaps be an army. Where do I hotkey the command center? Such an important thing for a lot of new players to do is to, again, visualize a good hotkey setup and to start solving problems with hotkeys and then sort of take step backs and rearrange and then take steps back and rearrange. For instance, when I first started to play, I actually used the F2, F3, and F4 keys in Starcraft to hotkey my command centers. But they don't exist in Starcraft 2. They're up at F5, F6, F7, and F8, and I didn't like those. So I had to really start using 4 for my command centers. I'm still not the biggest fan of that. However, I'm kind of used now to having 0 as my command centers, because 0S was a very common motion in Brood War. My hands were kind of used to that, and so I kind of used that. Or for instance, with Protoss, I use 0 and 9 as nexuses. Weirdly enough, I have all my nexuses hotkeyed together, and then I have 0 and 1 and 9 as 1, purely to individually chrono boost things. So, like, I'll go to a forge, and then I'll hit 0C, and then click, or 9C, and then click. And that way I can kind of distribute the energy on those. And the way I come up with these is not by being sophisticated at all. I just sort of sat down one day and said, okay, I've been playing Protoss for a little while. How do I sort out my hotkeys? What would be good? All right, well, I kind of want 1, 2, 3, 4 as armies. I kind of want 5 as gateways, 6 as robos, 7 as stargates. Well, I guess if I had an observer around the map, I'd kind of want to find him easily. Where should I put him? I could put him at 4. I let 1, 2, 3, 4 be units. Okay, let's do that. What other problems do I have? Well, I have problems chrono boosting on my forges. So you know what? I'm going to hotkey my forges 8. Cool, so now I'm going to hit 8, 8, and then I can chrono boost it. Well, you know what my nexus is? I was having trouble with the distribution of the energy, so I'm going to use 0 and 9 to chrono boost. You know what I was using for a long time? I was saying, I have a hard time when I'm in a battle going back and macroing. Because I have to move down to the minimap, click, and then I have to macro, like warp in units, and then I have to go back to the battle. Well, I would use 0 as a pylon. So I'd go 0, 0, go to a pylon, 5, select my warp gates, warp everything in, 1, 1, bam, back to battle. I just thought of what would be a convenient way to use this keyboard for my purposes, and that is how it ended up going down. Note, the most important thing of all this is that it took me a while for my hands to get used to it. 0C is a very awkward thing. I want you to look at 0C, 9C, the way I chrono boost. It's kind of a funky distance, but you know what? My hands can do it so easily now. Greetorp actually uses 0 and 9 as his command center, so he goes 0S, 9S, and he's very good about going ba-da-da-da. He's very fun to watch at MLGs as a result. So yeah, we're going to take some more questions. So by the way, reassign in a way that's convenient for you is another thing that I wanted to emphasize about Crispy Chip's question. For instance, if I'm doing an early game strategy, I'll have 5, 6, and 7 as 3 different gateways, but in the later stages of the game, I just have all my gateways assigned to 5, all my robos assigned to 6. I override them as time goes on. Let's see here. Let us divine. We're going to take one more question. One more question. Lot of hard questions. I'm going to take Tim Twins one. It's an ambitious question, so I'll try to give it an ambitious answer. And then I'll give it an ambitious done, because I have to go do State of the Game with JP McDaniel. So definitely tune into that. You can find the link on TLNet. So, Tim Twin says, Dear esteemed Day 9, I have trouble finding a balance between army and teching / expansion. How do I know when to pump my army, and when to focus more on teching and expanding? So there are a couple of ways that you can figure this timing out, which is to watch really good players play and try to put them into buckets. Like, hey, this guy went for a tank after he had 4 barracks. This guy went for a tank after he had 1 barracks. And you study a lot, and you do a lot of research and that sort of thing. However, a very, very, very easy thing to do is just pick a time and to naively settle on something that feels the best. And this relates a lot to mid-game planning. So again, the question says, how do I know when to pump my army and when to focus more on teching and expanding? You can say something like, in my mid-game, I want 3 bases, 5 barracks, 4 with reactor, 1 with tech lab. I want a factory making tanks, and I want a starport with a reactor making medevacs. Yeah. And then we visualize this in our head. That's kind of where you want to be. And then just say something like, all right, test number 1, I will make that factory after I have all 5 barracks constructed. See how that feels. All right, cool. I will make my factory after I have 4 barracks constructed. And then you play 5 games with that. All right, I'll make my factory after I have 3 barracks constructed. And then I'll make the 2 barracks after I make the factory. You just start doing this and you kind of settle on a timing that works really great. That's how a lot of the best timing pushes have been discovered. Someone saying, I will attack at 50 food. All right, that failed. I will attack at 60 food. Did a little better. I will attack at 70 food. Whoa, that went great. Let me try attacking at 75 food. Went even better. Let me attack at 80 food. Went terribly. Wow, somewhere between 70 and 75. Some magical's happening. I don't know what it is, because I never stopped to try to think about it. I just did it. Yeah. So without any further ado, I'm going to wrap up this daily. Thank you very much. Please tune into the State of the Game podcast that is happening now. Tune in for tomorrow's daily, followed by the Root Gaming Tournament cast. Tune into Thursday's daily, followed by the Root Gaming cast. And after that, I'm going to the EG Masters Cup in Phoenix, Arizona, after which I'm on Christmas break for like 2.5 weeks, so I won't be seeing you anymore. But I will be casting some leaked private Blizzard in-house replays that will be uploaded during the break. Peace all. Peace, peace, peace. See ya, see ya, see ya. Much hearts to everybody.